to another 80-bit newscast. Sounds like Mortal Kombat. We are your hosts.
Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I'm Termite, as indicated below us, and we are a weekly video game news running you through the highlights that we care about, and we are going to be talking about all kinds of things. We're excited to go over mostly Gamescom announcements, but what else are we going to go over tonight?
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot that I had just realized I was not logged into because I was looking at it on my phone earlier.
Yeah,
so why don't you start? Why don't you start telling us what we're doing tonight?
As soon as Evernote loads.
Oh, awesome! We're both in the same boat. Oh gosh, we're so prepared for tonight. Whoever gets there first. Ready?
No, it's probably you.
Go.
My computer's really, really slow.
All right, so we're gonna go over some games, games that have received 60 frames per second upgrades for the next generation. We're going to talk about some XCloud, Project XCloud news. We're going to talk about some information that dropped on one of my most anticipated games next year. We're going to talk.
Nobody else cares.
Yeah, just me. Yeah, only me. I'm the only person in the world who cares about this game.
Underground game niche.
Yeah, no, it's super niche. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about NetEase has acquired more studios. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about everything else that happened at Gamescom, a whole bunch of announcements. And then if we have time, I threw something last minute. And there's a new law that China has implemented that I might want to talk about. Yes. So it's like brand new breaking news today. Yep. I just saw it literally while I was watching TV, and I decided to add it to the list. Judge Judy Slayer just joined followed this.
All right, thank you for the follow.
So I don't know if you're watching Judge Judy Slayer, but if if you're here. Yeah, we're glad you're here, so thank you for following us.
Speaking of chat and followers, since this is a news show, we usually like to keep it just going. We're going to, like a tight episode that goes live on YouTube, which we'll talk about in a minute. So if you do chat with us, we will respond to them at the last 5 minutes of the show. We'll circle back, so if we say something wrong, incorrect, keep us straight. If you have comments you want to add or a question to ask, we'll do all of that at the end of the show. So go ahead and throw those comments in chat now. We just won't address them until later. And if you're curious about what I just mentioned with YouTube, you can go to 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website. There is a link to YouTube. This video will be uploaded for video on demand consumption at your leisure. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can find us live on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash every Monday night Eastern Standard Time, or Daylight Savings Time, right here at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. So jump in, join the fun, give us a follow our comings and goings, and you can add your own comments to our chat.
You know, I gotta say, if I don't know if this person is watching, but if they are, it's really impressive that not only did they follow us, but they stuck around for for 3 minutes of seeing this hideous zit on my face.
No one would have paid any attention to it if you didn't draw attention to
it.
Because I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, okay, alright, well, I guess it's also my nice haircut that you didn't say anything about.
It looks the same as it always does.
Yeah, but shorter, I guess. All right, so we'll just jump right into it. Enough vanity from Penguin. We'll jump right into it. So games that have received 60 frames per second updates. The first one we'll talk about is Assassin's Creed Odyssey now has a 60 frames per second patch on PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Ryan Gilliam over at Polygon writes, Assassin's Creed Odyssey patch adds 60 frames per second support on PS5, Xbox Series X. On Tuesday, version 1.6.0 adds support for improved frame rates when running the game on PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. Ubisoft announced Monday Odyssey will be playable at 60 frames per second on those platforms when playing the game through backwards compatibility. The new patch will require 470 megabyte download on the PS4, 370 on Xbox One. The patch notes are available if you would like. Don't mention any additional content or updates features coming to Odyssey, so it's just that. So, yet another game that gets a glorious 60 frames per second unlocked frame rate. I love it.
Yeah, we'll talk about another one that got 60 frames per second a little bit later because it's included in the game's announcements. So the next big piece of news that we are covering and talking about is Project XCloud is coming to Xbox consoles finally.
Well, I put this here because I need to learn. Because I see Xbox consoles are getting XCloud, and I'm like, wait a minute. I thought XCloud was like the streaming thing you would need a PC or a TV or a tablet or phone, so that you could play Xbox games without an Xbox. But now that's coming to consoles, so I'm really confused. So I threw this article on here to try and educate me, and hopefully you all as well. So I don't know what's going on.
So what did you learn? Oh,
I haven't read it yet. We're gonna do it together. So,
oh boy,
yeah. So The Verge.
Here, why don't I read it to you so that way you can hear it and maybe understand better? Does that make sense? Like sometimes when you're reading, you're just reading the words and not comprehending them. At least that's what happens to me. I'll read it to you and let's see what you think. So from The Verge, Tom Warren reports that Microsoft is bringing its xCloud gaming service, cloud gaming service, to Xbox One and Series X consoles this holiday. The integration of xCloud will let Xbox owners simply click and play on an Xbox game and stream it immediately, allowing players to try games before they commit to often hour-long process of downloading big titles. More than 100 games will be available as part of the initial xCloud integration, and players will be able to try games as they wait for them to download fully. This xCloud integration also allows players to jump into multiplayer games as soon as friends send an invite, instead of having to wait for it to complete installing. Microsoft will update its dashboard on Xbox One and Series X to include the cloud icon to show which games can be instantly streamed. Much like the rest of cloud gaming, the streams will support up to 1080p and 60 frames per second, so it won't be a replacement for those 4K TVs just yet. Microsoft is very much marketing this as a try before you download service. As this is also arriving on Xbox One, it also means the Xbox Series X exclusive games, Flight Simulator, and the Medium will also be available on older Xbox One consoles soon. Microsoft isn't committing to a date for Flight Simulator on xCloud just yet, saying it's coming in the future. So, yep, that's it. It's a try before you buy kind of thing.
Wow, that's
what
amazing. It sounds like. That is so cool.
That's a very smart integration of that technology, right? Because I wouldn't have even thought about that. Like, you know, you think of like we've talked a lot about like online streaming of games and how it can be like Netflix, and for people who maybe don't want to commit to a console, like it has some advantages, a lot of disadvantages. I'd never even thought about using it as a way to like try before you buy. That's genius. I think it's brilliant. Go Microsoft.
Yeah, and because Game Pass, you're not really buying a game. Say a new game comes out on Game Pass and your friend's playing it already because that person already had it installed. You just got home from work or whatever and you want to play it too, didn't have a chance to install it early to get ready. You can jump immediately into a multiplayer game with those friends while the game is downloading. Yeah. And then, yes, you limit yourself to 1080p, but you know the real quality is coming. The game save is always on the cloud, so you're not going to lose any game progress going from the cloud version to your actually installed one. So that's amazing. Or if it's like, this game looks kind of cool, I just want to dabble. I'm going to jump in here and see what it's like first, but I don't want to commit to a 3-hour-long download. Boom, just do it.
This is another example of Microsoft putting the consumer first and trying to think the way that consumers think about gaming in a way that Sony, quite frankly, isn't.
No,
don't get me wrong. Love what Sony's doing, love their investment in developers, love the games they're putting out, but the ease of use of the Xbox Series X over the PS5 is like leaps and bounds, and this is just another example of Xbox leveraging a technology to create a service that we didn't even think we wanted until we had it, and now I'm jealous. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So Sony, you better pony up.
And pay attention. Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes you question like because they're the closest thing. When I first started reading it, I was like, oh, it's like PS Now, but no, this is not like it's close.
It is, and
you'll be able to use it. You'll be able to use it like that for sure, but it's not necessarily what that article was highlighting, which is pretty cool.
And then you think of like the backwards compatibility. If I have an OG Xbox One and a new game that's a PS5 exclusive like Forza Horizon 5, I could play it on my old console, and then the game save is there. When I do get a Series X, I can just play it. Look how many game save transfer processes we've had to go through. Every game's different. Final Fantasy, Ghost of Tsushima, Borderlands 3, they're all different. Tony Hawk, Crash Bandicoot 4, the list goes on. They're a pain. Xbox, it's all just there. It just works.
Yep.
Anyway,
all right, cool.
I digress.
So let's talk about Elden Ring. Oh,
yeah. So it's a whole bunch of round of previews went out, so you can peruse the internet at your leisure for whatever site you would prefer to get a preview from. They all have it. I'm going to read from IGN just to get a little feel. Mitchell Saltzman writes, The gameplay demo opened up with a look at Elden Ring's first open field, which spread out in every direction with a number of easily visible points of interest. To the left was a small watchtower. Far off in the distance, straight ahead, was a gigantic glowing Erd tree. What?
Tiny clarification. It's not something that you can go watch. There's they had a closed door 15-minute gameplay preview. You can't go look up the gameplay, but you can look up
what people
game journalists who got to see it and their responses to it. Yeah, go on. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So we had left, small watchtower, straight ahead, gigantic glowing tree, and just in front was a site of lost grace. I don't know what that means, which will serve as the game's bonfire checkpoints.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about them is that some will cause a light to lead the way towards a recommended path. But of course, it's up to you whether to actually follow that path or not. And I read that paragraph because that insinuates much more open-worldy, Breath of the Wild-esque kind of exploration, which I do believe, and you have to correct me because I've never played them, Bloodborne and Dark Souls isn't very open world. It's kind of linear.
No. They're very... I mean, they have a connected world design, meaning you can go seamlessly from one area to the next. And they have explorative elements in them. They have a lot of things tucked away in nooks and crannies that you have to look for. But they're not open world the way Breath of the Wild is. It's not like you can go in any direction. There's lots of shuffling you along a specific path. So yeah, it's closer to something like God of War, like 2018 God of War, with even fewer like open areas.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So I'm correct in assuming that this is way more open then.
This is a huge departure. This is a huge departure for them. But I have other comments, so go on if we want to hit other thing. I have additional comments about that. So
sure. One of my takeaways from watching the open field gameplay was that this feeling you could encounter almost anything while exploring. In one section, a player approached a group of enemies gathered around a campfire. Then all of a sudden, a gigantic dragon swoops down, typical Souls fashion, and took them all out in a single blow, and then prompted a massive boss fight. That sounds crazy. In another section, there was a group of passive enemies walking along a trail escorting a giant carriage that could presumably be attacked and robbed of its contents, should you be skilled enough to survive the fight. In a different area, there was another carriage that was guarded, but by this time, a large encampment of enemies that the player carefully snuck through without alerting the whole camp. Oh, I read that a little wrong, but even going as far as to sleep arrow to silently pacify a guard. So you can even do stealth stuff. It's nuts. So it sounds like there's a lot here in this preview. Obviously, I'm not going to read it. We'll be here all night. So that's just a little bit that stood out to me, that made me excited about it. So it sounds cool. What did you want to add about the open exploration stuff?
Right. Well, I guess, so first of all, I'll say that of all the stuff that was previewed, there's a lot of really exciting things. Number one, it seems like they're taking a lot of the best elements from their various games, and this game may be sort of I'm not going to assume that it's going to be a 10 out of 10 game yet, because of course it hasn't come out yet, so wait till it comes out before you judge it. But what it looks like is they're taking all the lessons they've learned from the other games and bringing them together into this game. So if they have things like the successful things from other games, like stealth from Bloodborne, poise and posture. Well, there was a previous system called poise, but it looks like they've elaborated on it further to be closer to the posture system in from Sekiro, where basically the more successful you parry, the more your enemy gets scared, basically, and then they'll stumble, and you can get a death blow in. Is how it works in Sekiro, and it looks like that's a similar system to what's going to happen in Elden Ring. So they have poise posture, and it's just nice to see them bringing in other elements. But the open world stuff is completely new, and they've already talked about the mount. The mount, you'll be able to summon your mount anywhere. You'll be able to place a checkpoint. So that's at least in the they have talked about how there's an overworld, and then there's dungeons. And in the overworld, you can place your checkpoint. For longtime Souls players, think bonfire. You can place your bonfire anywhere in the world. Only one at a time, though, so you can't have a bunch of bonfires and spawn whichever one you want. But you can have one at a time, so you can kind of control where you respawn in a way that they haven't allowed you to do in the past. So what I wanted to talk about, though, is the fact that before Breath of the Wild came out, and I didn't know this because I wasn't playing these games at the time, but what I've learned is that I think Breath of the Wild took a lot of the inspiration as to how to approach exploration in their game from Dark Souls. Because again, Dark Souls doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't give you a waypoint. It doesn't give you a little icon on your map and a checklist to complete. you discover things, you run into things, you find things. In fact, in order to play these games and platinum them successfully, I've had to actually look up my own like guides to tell me step by step, because things are so well tucked away and hidden, meant to elicit that reaction of discovery from you. So I fully believe that Breath of the Wild took much of its cues as to how to handle exploration in their open world from Dark Souls in the first place. So it's funny to see this kind of come full circle now, and now From Software is like, oh, the way that Breath of the Wild used our ideas of exploration, but then did it to create this expansive world that drew you in and immersed you. Yeah, we're gonna now do that ourselves. So it's fun to see. Like, I'm really interested to see them, because From Software is meticulous in their design, and in the same way that Nintendo is with the Zelda franchise. So I really, really, really think that Elden Ring has the potential to be the dark Breath of the Wild that I've been wanting. So, like, marrying those two games together would make me so happy. So, I really, really, again, don't count. It's not a game that's out yet, so I would never tell anybody to assume that it's going to be a masterpiece. But it's got a lot of promise right now that's gotten me stoked.
All right, you are very pumped and excited about this.
I'm very pumped. I'm playing Dark Souls 3 now too, so I'm like finally completing. Yeah, I'm like in it right now, and I'm into it. So yeah, nice. Good stuff. We can move on. I could talk all night about Elden Ring, but
sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
All right, so NetEase is procuring more. I said studios, but that might not be true. China's taking more and more a hold in the gaming industry. Over at Bloomberg, Takashi Mochizuki writes, NetEase is in final negotiations to poach Yakuza franchise creator Toshihiro Nagoshi from Sega, a sign of how Chinese games companies are expanding beyond their home turf during a government-led crackdown. The hire from Sega Sammy Holdings Incorporated would mark the biggest coup in a contest between NetEase and close rival Tencent to scoop up video game talent and assets in Japan, made more urgent by slowing growth and regulatory pressure at home. Nagoshi, who developed and helms one of Sega's most successful action series, is expected to set up his own team and create new games, people familiar with the matter said. He hasn't signed a final contract, and his duties are yet to be finalized, they said, asking not to be identified, discussing a private deal. Tencent and NetEase are on a multi-year quest to fill out their content libraries with more of Japan's highly prized animation, comics, and games titles, betting on their potential to become global blockbuster hits. In a country that's typically taken a skeptical view to outside investment, their ventures are now finding more receptive audience in the wake of the pandemic's impact on funding and Sony Group core cutbacks on support for small studios. Tencent, the world's largest game publisher, regards Japanese content as a potential anchor for its increasingly critical effort to build a Disney-style global media juggernaut that also spans video, music, and books. It's on the brink of adding another studio to its string of acquisitions in recent years, according to the People. So neither NetEase or... Yeah.
If Disney were, a propaganda arm of the American government, sure, I guess. Oh man, sorry, go on.
Yep. Chinese companies cater to hundreds of millions of domestic gamers, but have had limited success creating their own global franchises. In recent years, they've begun focusing on Japanese anime, which is popular both across Asia and the US, as a way to tap global markets. That effort accelerated this year after Beijing began to crack down on gaming addiction among minors, forcing Tencent and NetEase to curb in-game spending and playtime for kids. This article is really, really long, so I'm going to scroll down. There's a good summary at the bottom. So publicly announced minority acquisitions by Tencent include Platinum Games, so that's kind of a history here, which has developed games for Square Enix and Nintendo, and console games publisher Marvelous Inc. So that Tencent has gotten those. The Chinese company has also backed Boca Game Studios, a startup led by founders who previously created hits for Sony. That growing track record of deals is also helping build confidence among other prospective investment targets, the People said. Remember, Tencent also has a stake in Riot Games, which is League of Legends, so that's why they're huge.
Well, they're talking about minority. Yeah, these are minority acquisitions. They're not like, they don't own them. Right. They're not in control of them, but they are investing clearly in a lot of NetEase, and they're focusing here on
NetEase.
Japanese studios, right? Like they're talking here in this article about Japanese studios. So yeah, you're right. It's the same kind of investment that they have in Riot Games, but the emphasis here is on.
And remember, Tencent and NetEase are two different companies. They're both in China, and this article is about NetEase acquiring this, but in the article it goes into the general context of what's happening. So the final paragraph here, NetEase wants to play a bigger role in developing the games and content it hopes will turn into international hits while also burnishing its credentials as a global rather than purely Chinese firm, the people said. The publisher established a console game development studio in Japan last summer and hired industry veteran Tetsuya Akatsuka from Bandai Namco Holdings as its head. Nagoshi's hiring will extend that strategy, with the Yakuza creator likely to reprise his role of running a semi-autonomous studio within a larger organization. So, China's coming. They're taking more and more. You constantly hear Tencent's got investments, NetEase's got investments. They just keep creeping. They keep coming.
Yep.
Keep doing it. It's going to be like, I mean, South Park does a great job of satire at the superhero / action movie flicks that are influenced by Chinese investors, and it causes censorship and other issues and creative blocks, and all of that is happening, and it's definitely going to be rampant in the gaming industry as these studios continue to acquire more and they grow.
Well, I want to. This is a good segue too to talk about that. I'm going to throw it in there just because. Bloomberg also reports that today that China is officially now limiting minors to just 3 hours of gaming a week. So I'm not quite sure that headline is exactly accurate. My understanding was they're basically oh, come on,
China
Bloomberg.
will limit the amount of time children can play video games to just 3 hours most weeks, a dramatic escalation of restrictions which dealt a blow to the world's largest mobile gaming market, as Beijing signaled it would continue a campaign to control expansion of large tech companies. Gaming platforms from Tencent and NetEase can only offer online gaming to minors from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Fridays, weekends, and public holidays, state news agency Xinhua reported, citing a notice by the National Press and Public Administration. The new rules are a major step up from a previous restriction set in 2019 of an hour and a half hours most days, which that other article I read alluded to, talked about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's just so interesting, and just from a global point of view, it's like you've got NetEase and Tencent, which have huge ties to the Chinese government in regards to, like, I mean, look at this, right? Like, a normal company would be like, no, we don't want to limit game time because that's money, right? But in this case, you see that these companies are hugely under sway by the sensibilities of their government. And if the government wants to crack down on minors playing games during the week, then they're going to crack down on it, and they're not going to ask questions, and they're going to literally remove their ability to access these games, from a certain period of time. And that's crazy to me. So again, it's this idea that, like, you pay attention to what's going on here because these sensibilities are the things that are going to be influencing the games that get made, our games. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like this idea of limiting game time, if you're the kind of person like me who thinks it's the parents' job to limit their kids' game time, right? It should be up to the parents to have the freedom to determine what's an appropriate amount of time for their games and what times they should be playing games, right? Mm-hmm. If
Americans
have no hand in that.
Americans want to get mad over, like, a mask recommendation. This is a government order telling companies to limit players' playtime to an hour and a half now, 3 hours a week.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane to me. And so, like, this is the kind of influence that's going to be, again, they may not necessarily ban games, but these are the kind of people that are influencing the games are the kinds of people that are, basically, these are the kinds of people that are doing it. And I'm just like, it makes me mad. I'm glad it's not here, right? But, like, yeah, it bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some other regulations that are other key points of these new rules is that all online games should be linked to a state anti-addiction system, and companies cannot provide services to users without real name registrations. So there's an invasion of privacy. Regulators will ratchet up checks over how gaming firms carry out restrictions on things like playing time and in-game purchases. So there's more checks, more exposure, more transparency, no privacy. Regulators will work with parents, schools, and other members of the society to combat youth gaming addiction. Might be the one thing that is okay.
There's better ways of doing that, right? Yeah. I know addiction's a problem, right? Like, it is. I'm not gonna pretend like it's not, or deny it, but, like, there's other ways of combating it. Education and investing money in other activities for, like, a lot of the kids who play games and get addicted to them are, like, on the poor end of the spectrum because they have nothing else to do. And if, all things considered, video games are a cheap way of doing it, or they have parents that are out of touch with them, you know what I mean? Like, that aren't investing in them. There's so many other better ways of combating addiction in minors and youths. This is going, like, taking the hammer to
Yep, just
like a
nope.
plate. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, my plate got cracked, and you're taking a hammer to it trying to fix it. It's like, you're just going to cause more cracks. It's insane. So, whatever. All right, well, we can move on to happier things. So we'll finish talking about some announcements from Gamescom. How much time do we have left?
We have just a few minutes, so drop your things in chat. We'll probably just do a blitz through the stuff that I highlighted were the things that I was going to touch on through what was announced at Gamescom. Go check out the trailers or the announcements online. I link off to I'm not linking off to, but I'm using Kotaku as a source for everything announced during Gamescom Opening Night Live. Gamescom Opening Night Live is one segment from Jeff Keighley. It was a 2-hour-long presentation in the context of a greater Gamescom show where there was other tidbits of information unveiled throughout the weekend. So we're just going to talk about Jeff Keighley's show. It was the 2-hour show and my favorite announcements. If I miss something here for you, then feel free to talk about it. But really quickly, Saints Row is getting a reboot. So that's interesting.
Our buddy A-Ray, who we interviewed in one of our episodes, was a motion capture actor on that. So, motion capture performer. So, yay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay.
And
Just plug in A-Ray.
Yeah, he's awesome. Apparently, it's like a whole new reboot. They're going back to their roots, yet trying to preserve some of the wackiness of the newer games. It's like the newer ones are extreme and like way over the top, but the old ones were closer to Grand Theft Auto, so they're kind of like going into the middle. There is some information revealed about it. Apparently they love crime, and it's basically like a bunch of millennials that get together that want to form a crime ring to pay off student loans or something along that line. Like, it sounds insane. So I'm actually pretty intrigued by it. I'll keep following it as it comes out. But yeah. So the next announcement that I care about, FireAxis, the developers of XCOM, have revealed a new Marvel game called Marvel Midnight Suns. Now, this was just a teaser trailer or a tonal trailer, so you just kind of get a feel for what the game's going to be without actually any gameplay yet. And it will be a different, like a departure from what XCOM was. This is now like a collaboration of mutants that are going to be fighting hordes of enemies versus a different, like XCOM was more like tactical strategy, slower paced. So this sounds like same kind of mechanics but applied differently. I'm probably going to talk more about this when we do a show about XCOM and the FireAxis, etc. That's just a little teaser. We have more information coming about that. Going on, Call of Duty Vanguard had an extended gameplay trailer. Call of Duty Vanguard, yeah, I said that. What did I care about? I cared about this because I didn't know how many female developers were involved and writers from Sledgehammer, and given the context of the Activision Blizzard horrible California case that we've covered with 2 podcast episodes now, notice one, they didn't show any Activision iconography on the trailer whatsoever. They tried to distance themselves entirely from it because the problematic studio is Blizzard. Activision's complicit through their lack of, I guess, disciplinary action.
My understanding was that this was also happening in Activision's culture as well. Like, I believe there were people from Activision and development studios in Activision that were named in the lawsuit as well. It just didn't get as much press because it was more dramatic with Blizzard. But I'm pretty sure it was as well. I'll look it up though and be sure.
Should, yeah. But so this game is developed by Sledgehammer, and the reason why it stood out was this was a female protagonist, voiced by a female, of course, and written by females, produced. It's very diverse. Go check it out. It seems like it could be a really fun Call of Duty game if you're into that franchise. So I wanted to highlight it a little bit as a contrast to the crap we're hearing about Activision Blizzard. So there's that. Halo Infinite got some exposure. We finally got the release date, which is December 8th, 2021. And they showed off like a new cinematic trailer for that, showing off like how awesome Spartans are. It seemed pretty cool. Followed by some 20th anniversary limited edition controllers and consoles, which are all sold out. So if you wanted those, it's too late, of course, unless you buy one from a scalper on eBay. There was an update to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which I and T-Bone are extraordinarily excited about. We can't freaking wait. And April O'Neil is now a new playable character, and they showed a whole trailer showcasing some of their gameplay as well as some team attacks, and it looks so good. If you love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade games, this is the game for you. It would be great. Lego Skywalker Saga got a release date as well. I do believe it is in spring of 2022. This game, interestingly enough, has been delayed for 2 years. So who knows what happened? That's like a 2-year delay is like you need to remake your whole engine. So I don't know what was going on with Lego Skywalker Saga, but I'm glad they finally gave us an update to that. They did show another Far Cry 6 trailer from Ubisoft with Esposita. being awesome once more. So more story, more. The game looks so good. And then the big announcement we talked about with another 60 frames per second patch. Horizon Forbidden West got its release date announced, and it is
officially delayed till next year, as everyone predicted.
Of course, February 18th, 2021,
like
22.
Yep.
I think is what it is, just off memory. Horizon Zero Dawn also got a 60 frames per second patch, causing me to install it and play the DLC I haven't played yet. So I was actually a minute late to the show because of that. So the 60 FPS patch is gorgeous. It's awesome. It looks great. So if you have a PS5, you're in luck. Sifu also got an update and a release date as well. I think it's another 2022 title, and it is set for February 22nd. So Sifu is the fighting game-ish, like action-adventure fighting, third person, that you age as you fight, and every time you die, you age. It's kind of like, looks really interesting. And then the last thing I cared about was the Death Stranding extended look at the director's cut, showcasing more of the features that are added to the game. Of course, that's going to be like 60 frames per second and 4K, along with a whole bunch of texture resolution updates and lighting, all the things you would want from a PlayStation 5 game, as well as a whole bunch of new fun things like launching your cargo across the map with a cannon, and also jumping off of high cliffs with like rockets that will slow your descent so you don't die, making traversal way faster and way easier. So if you wanted to play Death Stranding a little bit faster, you can. People who got bored, you're in luck. The director's cut's for you. Yep. And that's it. That was Gamescom in, look at that, 5 minutes.
Boom.
Done.
All right, yeah. Well, that is the show. That's all the news. So we're going to depart in order to record an episode of our podcast. But we do have a podcast. So if you liked what you heard here and want to hear more of our thoughts and ideas on various topics in the gaming industry, you can go to 80bitpodsmash.com, where you can literally listen to all the episodes from that website. Just stream them without having to download them or anything. Or you can find links to all of the podcast platforms where we have mirrors of. So Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, all of those. Any platform you can think of that has podcasts, we're probably on it. And if we're not, let us know so we can put ourselves on there if we can. And then, of course, we also do stuff on YouTube and Twitch, mostly this live stuff. So we have 2 other additional shows, like weekly things that we do. We do a Wednesday live stream of a video game, which I will be doing this week, probably Dark Souls 3, but we'll see. And we also do this show here, this new show here. So that content ends up here on Twitch live Monday nights and Wednesday nights, respectively. And you can hit the subscribe button if you missed this or are watching the replay. You can hit the subscribe button so that you can see us live. Or you can go to YouTube, where our episodes end up later, and you can subscribe there to get those when they get uploaded. Other than that, you can engage with us on social media. And again, 80-Bit Pod Smash has all the links to that. So Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, we're on all of it. And then in all of our show notes on the show episodes, you can click on the notes, hit see more, and you'll probably find our Discord link, so you can join us on Discord as well. Did I miss anything?
I think you nailed it.
Rock on. All right. Well, we will be back this time, 8 p.m. on next Monday with more news for y'all. So we'll see you then.
See you next week.